Everyone, and welcome to another one of our videos. Today I'm going to show you how to replace your rear door wiring harness for your 2009 to 2014 F-150. You might have a different part number depending on how your truck's optioned, but in my case we have part number 9L3Z14631-CAA, and this is for my driver's side rear door, which is showing as ajar even when it's not. What happens is that the wiring breaks inside here with the door opening and closing over time, and so every once in a while they'll need to be replaced. You can also splice and fix that way, but I'd rather just replace the whole harness with how inexpensive they are. They're about 70 bucks or so. So I'll go over to the truck. I have a decent amount of it torn down now, but I'll show you where I got to so far, and then we will proceed from there. I figured I'd make a video once I got partway through this, since there's not a lot of info online on this in terms of a full-on walkthrough that I've been able to find, and video would have helped me go through the process, so figured I'd do one for everyone else as well. So we'll head on over to the truck. Okay, so we're here inside the truck, and you can see that we have the driver's side B-pillar off and the door harness partially disconnected over here. So I'll walk you through kind of what we've done so far. Basically, the B-pillar came off. In order to do that, you've got two covers that you have to remove. There's one cover right up here, which says airbag on it. It would normally go in there, and it bolts in right there. And then there's another cover on the seatbelt slider right here that mates up with this little pull button here. And that's a T50 Torx that you need to take out in order to get that loose. Once you've gotten those loose, you can just pull the cover over. And what I did is I just looped the seatbelt around the driver's seat and pulled the cover over so it's over here. I don't need to take it out all the way. If you did, you would need to remove the driver's side seat trim and pull the belt off there. Once you get back here, you've got a rubber flap cover. And I went ahead and just pulled this loose and this loose, and this actually exposes your wiring harness. So your interior harness, the truck side, is right here, and it's very easy to disconnect. There's just a little push down tab right here that you can see flexing where my thumb is. You push that down, pull it out of the harness, and then this harness right here fits into this oval shaped slot. In order to remove that, you have to push down two tabs, one right here and one on the opposite side right there. And once you do that, I found it easier to do the interior tab, kind of rock it out and then push the tab that's closest to you if you're working back here, and pull the whole thing out from there. Once that's loose, you're done with the truck side until you're doing reassembly. Now it's time to move on to the door panel side. Now there's a bunch of videos that show how to pull a door panel. I'm not going to go in depth on that. Basically, you need to pull this cover out and there's a bolt back here. You need to pull the upper cover off here. There's a bolt back behind there. And there's two bolts on the underside of the panel. I've done this a couple times for speakers and whatnot in the past, so that's going to be pretty easy to take care of. The other thing you need to do is, I can't remember if I had to do this or not, but you have to pull up the window control per some of the instructions I've seen online at least, in order to get the wiring harness loose, to get the door panel off of the truck itself. So we'll see if we actually have to do that or not, but that may be required as well. I'm gonna go ahead and get the door panel off and we'll proceed forward from there. All right, so here we are with the door panel off, and you can see we've got one portion of the wiring harness here, but everything else is hidden behind the panel here. So we're gonna need to pull this plastic sheeting down. I'm gonna start from the top and pull it down. I've already done it in the past for speakers, so you can see it's kind of delaminated, and actually it's kind of shrunk in here, which is interesting, probably just with heat and time. Gonna make sure to keep note of the tabs that are tucked into certain spots, just so we put this all back correctly. But we have one connector here for the harness that's gonna get replaced, and that's the window switch. We also have the window motor, the door sensor, I believe, and then the actual door lock actuator, the one that runs this guy right here. I believe those are the four connectors that are on the harness that I have on this truck. No heated rear seat, so no switch for that, nothing else. So that should be everything here. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel this down, and we'll see how the wires are routed and how we need to do this replacement. All right, so I have everything peeled down, and this looks like it'll be not too bad. Couple things I wanna note. Number one, this thing, because mine is super old, well, not really that old, but old and weathered, split the vinyl piece in here. So If I can get a new one, I may get a new one. If I can't, I'll have to end up fixing that with some sort of ducting tape, something along the HVAC line of things. That said, that's a when I'm buttoning it up thing. Now we're at the point where we can start replacing the harness. So I have a new harness for reference, obviously, so I know how many Christmas trees I'm gonna need to pop. Those are pretty easy to take out. The wiring harness holders are what I'm talking about. Some of them are on the back side. Some of them were on the front side, like this one right here. So just be cognizant of that as you pull your harness out. But basically what you have in here, and I was wrong whenever I initially said it, you have the window switch, you have the window motor, you have door lock, which is door lock and I think actuation, as well as door is shut indicator, and you have the speaker. Of course, forgot about that. So those are your 4 different connectors. My speaker one is probably gonna be the hardest of all of them because it's kind of tucked up back here with an aftermarket speaker and a little aftermarket harness and everything. So I'm gonna have to figure that one out blindly or take out the speaker. Neither one's too bad of a thing to do. And then otherwise, this should all be pretty straightforward. Gonna just have to pop some clips. The connectors are all quite easily accessible. And then with the new connectors out of the vehicle, if you're doing this replacement, you should be able to see the tabs and how these things pop loose. So I'm gonna go ahead and get at least everything loose. If there's anything I have to address at that point, I'll come back. Otherwise, I'm gonna have everything loose and get this harness pulled out. So behind the cable, in front, just behind, tucks up behind. That's all against the panel. That's this right there. This is where the Y-split happens. That's the harness there, and that must go, yep, directly into there. Okay. All right, so I just wanted to come back before I pull the harness. I'm right about to. Super easy. I'm 5 minutes later after I finished filming the last clip. I ended up pulling the speaker out. You can totally get to all of this, but I wanted to make sure of the routing and make sure that I route the new harness the exact same way as the old one. So I ended up pulling the speaker out because that way I can just reach in. I mean, you can see I'm moving the whole harness now at that point. So I ended up doing that. I just wanted to throw that out there. So now should be good to go to replace or pull the old harness and replace it. It's all gonna come out. I'm gonna get the grommet loosened, popped that way. It's all gonna come out this way. So go ahead and get that done. All right, so I have the new harness here in place. And I wanna make a couple mentions before I start getting stuff buttoned back up. So number one, starting over here at the very end, you can see I put a little mark right there on the connector. I had marked earlier in black on the door jamb there, mark to note the alignment, just to make sure that all the connectors drop in the same way. There's also a arrow that shows up here. So as long as you put this up, everything will align too, assuming that the harness was made correctly, which it should be. But just want to make mention of that. So at this point, this can pop back into place here. I'm just going to do some wipe up and clean up before I do that. Number two, make sure you route your harness and start putting your clips back in place. I have earlier in the video the reference kind of showing how everything runs around the panel. I'm going to be following that exact same reference to put everything back. So just make sure that you drop all the clips in from the back side, from the front side, however they need to be. And number three, I'm going to go ahead and get all of those done up. And then once I've got all these dropped back into the correct spots, what I'm going to do is plug everything back in and then leave the panel off, including getting this plugged in, leave the panel off, and then throw the battery back on the truck to make sure that everything is functioning correctly. That's just what I would like to do in order to make sure that we're all squared away. And then, because this thing has been triggering lights coming on in the garage randomly, I'm going to leave it for probably a week and just let it sit and make sure that everything's all good to go. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get everything buttoned back up and we'll reconvene at that point. All right, so here we are with the door panel back on the door. I ended up patching the cracked / broken door panel seal or vapor barrier, whatever you want to call it, with some duct tape. That's the only thing that I found that would actually stick to the plastic, so I ended up doing that, as well as using that to stick it back to the door in a few spots. It's kind of cold right now here, so the glue is not soft and doesn't want to re-stick. It should soften up and re-stick once things heat up, but it's too cold to let that happen. Otherwise, you can take it all off and reapply the vapor barrier with some butyl rubber or something like that, but I'm not gonna do that right now, at least. So door panel's back on, none of the trim's on, B-pillar's still off, but we're ready to go ahead and start reattaching. So really, all there is left of the job is putting back on the trim and clipping everything back in place. So we've got screw, 2 screws at the bottom, and then we have the couple screws for the B-pillar, as well as the covers and clips and whatnot. Pretty darn straightforward. At this point, I'm gonna go ahead and get everything put back together. But that's really the end of the video. Pretty simple process overall. One of the easier door harness jobs that I've seen compared to some other vehicles. And really no big deal as far as taking everything apart and replacing everything. If I had to guess, doing this over again now that I know how to do it, it'd probably take me an hour. So very, very simple, not anything to stress out about too much. Good news is too, the new harness right here works. You can see it's strung between the door and the jamb and everything. Tested it out, everything's great. No more driver's rear door open, light on. So we're all good and set there. With that, I want to thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.